Hi everyone, and welcome to the weekly wrap. This is episode 7 if you're counting, and today if you're watching on the day the video releases, it is June 5th, 2020. My name is Marianne Simpson from Apex Media.
And I'm Seth Miller from PaxX.aero, and we're going to dive right in with a few headlines this week. A bunch of aircraft got retired, and this is sort of part of the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Some of the older planes flying around the world are being grounded and sent off to retirement, and this week we had a bit of a party, actually. Delta Airlines retired its MD-88 and MD-90s, and so it was a little weird to see a party happening right now in aviation, and it's a retirement party, so it wasn't necessarily the biggest celebration, but it was still happened. Those planes are now gone from the fleet. In some ways, good riddance to the noise and the higher emissions. Also, there's a lot of people that have fond memories of them, so win some, lose some there. Air Canada similarly is retiring its 767s and Embraer 190s and some of its A319s. The 767 had its final flight, but keep an eye out on those. There's a lot of cargo demand still in the industry, and the 767-300s especially have a happy place in cargo services, so expect that some of those will be coming back. And also on the news front, the Bombardier CRJ line is no longer a Canadian product. The Mitsubishi Heavy Industries picked it up. That deal was announced last year, and they closed on it this week, bringing it such that it's now technically the Mitsubishi CRJ, which is going to be good news for them as they try to keep their efforts to build their own in-house space jet product alive. The MRJ, or Space Jet now, is facing some challenges, slowdown in some of the efforts there, but they've got the CRJ services line to keep them going.
Do you know anything, Seth, about what that means for the aerospace industry in Montreal? I know, Bombardier employed a lot of people and was the nucleus for aerospace in Canada for a long time.
Sure. So the Bombardier BizJet line is staying in Mirabel, outside Montreal. And the assembly line there is staying as part of the Bombardier family. So the assembly line didn't transfer over. It's just the operating certificates and certifications for the original CRJ line and then the services organization. So some job cuts, some shift, but Montreal is going to remain a big part of the aerospace community. It's going to be a hub, as it were. Even with Airbus picking up the A220 instead of the C-Series, they're kept an assembly line there. So definitely Montreal is still part of that aerospace family.
Good to hear as a Canadian. Yeah. Happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Also in the headlines this week, some of our Middle Eastern carriers made some announcements about hygiene experts or wellness ambassadors that are sort of part of their program, again, to reassure flyers that flying is safe. So we've got Emirates, Etihad, and Turkish have all made these sort of announcements. I think Etihad's announcement probably was the furthest reaching in terms of media coverage. So they've announced a wellness ambassador program. It's part of a large new program that sort of is introducing these new measures and steps. So right now you can already have a web chat or send an email and chat with a wellness ambassador who will answer passengers' questions about the safety of flying, what they should be doing, what measures other passengers and staff are taking, catering practices and stuff like that. They're going to be rolling that out in partnership with Abu Dhabi Airport to the airport to address travelers' questions at the airport, and then they'll be introducing a specially trained flight attendant, I guess, on board to do much of the same thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me to hear that they're doing the advanced pre-travel bit. I think that really offers a compelling difference and an opportunity to help passengers become a lot more comfortable before they get to the airport. Travel's always been a stressful situation no matter what, and sort of addressing some of that before it happens is a great opportunity.
Yeah, they've also created this downloadable sort of like one-page PDF called a wellness guide, I think it's called, a travel guide, and basically just shows the cycle of the travel journey from the beginning to the end, all the steps that they're taking. It uses little icons, very brief text. It's available in English and Arabic, and I just kind of feel like that is a really good way to reassure people without throwing too much information at them. They don't mention the word virus or illness or anything. It's really like changing the rhetoric and sort of focusing on wellness and proactivity, cleanliness, as opposed to, what the results of not doing that might be.
Awesome. Anything to make passengers more comfortable, I think, is good news. So happy to see this coming along. So a couple weeks ago, we had David Farron from Adaptive Channel on talking about hygiene standards on board and how things are going to shift in terms of the in-flight experience, and especially around the in-flight magazine. And whoa, Nelly, did that touch off some interesting debates in the industry.
Yeah, we had loads of response. There was some conversation going on under the YouTube channel, and it actually that video resulted in us being reached out to by Inc. So today we're joined by Jonny Clark, Business Development Director at Inc. You may all know him better from his other hustle, which is a popular blog in the industry, The Design Error. But he's here with us today, and we're real happy about it. Hi, Jonny. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, Marianne. Hi, Seth. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
So, Jonny, we heard from you a couple weeks ago after you watched the episode where we talked about the potential demise of the in-flight magazine, and Inc. has done some research, or basically has some evidence to suggest that this isn't going to happen. Can you explain a little bit more?
Well, it's not that it's not going to happen. It's just that it's not going to happen yet. We know that airlines more than ever are using their magazines as a way of communicating with their passengers. After all, it's hard to beat the engagement that these much-loved analog products still generate. In comparison, magazines' 88% engagement is so much more than digital right now, and that's why airlines are really struggling to map out their transition from print engagement to digital. And that's going to take some time, and the magazines are going to be really key in driving traffic to these new platforms.
And you've compiled some evidence that suggests that the paper on board isn't quite as unhygienic as we might think. Can you share some details about that? Who are we trying to convince that this is the case?
Well, when we first saw the report from the National Institute of Health, which showed that the virus could live on surfaces for up to 3 days, we wanted to immediately delve deeper into the research, and we spoke to the CDC unit of the Wisconsin University. And we found out that the same research piece also showed that card and its substrate paper barely held viruses at all. In fact, a Lancet study later on showed that it lives on paper for less than 3 hours. So our paper wasn't meant to convince anyone. It was providing an insight service to the industry and to the airlines that are our partners. And you may have seen that these same airlines are now adopting paper and card to house meal boxes, seat coverings, even wellness kits during this time.
The stronger engagement numbers sound pretty compelling, but that also requires having enough passengers on board to be reading this. Is there a magic number of load factors or something like that that tips this back into being a profitable endeavor?
From a commercial standpoint, advertisers need eyeballs to generate revenues, but airlines also need platforms to communicate with their passengers. It's not about just making money. It's about maintaining a communication platform in an era when airlines are losing more and more opportunities to speak to their passengers in a branded voice.
Jonny, traditionally magazines have sort of focused on inspirational, aspirational travel ideas, but do you see this content pattern sort of shifting as travelers shift their behaviors as well?
It's a really interesting question, and we're already adapting our content to match the expected shifts in traveler behavior. We've actually run a couple of dossiers on this already. We're focusing on more domestic travel in the US, which data is showing, and across the rest of the world, we're seeing an emergence of trips which are more off the beaten path, closer to nature, and more about places to reconnect with loved ones.
You know, that is interesting to me. I know certainly personally we're looking at some shorter haul trips in the near future with me and my wife. So we'll see if maybe perhaps one of those new domestic destinations proves compelling for us.
And moving along, this week it was announced that Safran has been engaged to exclusively develop and manufacture Universal Movement's Interspace seat portfolio. This is really interesting news from my perspective because I was at the launch of the Interspace seat portfolio, so that was actually quite fun. It happened here in London. So this includes the original Interspace seat, which basically has a fold-out wing system. It was designed for a premium economy seat. And the fold-out wing system, even though it kind of seems to be fitting with a lot of the other COVID solutions we've seen for hygiene reasons and separation on board, it was actually developed for comfort. So the seat just has a wing that sort of folds out from behind the seat and allows you to lean, because, you know, that's kind of hard to do on a lot of seats. So it met with a lot of really great reaction. And I think as a result of them having previously launched this concept, it kind of puts them in a good position, or maybe a little bit ahead of the pack, who are now trying to develop all these sort of separating seat ideas.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having something to lean on in a premium seat. I'm a window seat guy anyway, so I usually have the sidewall. But having something even for the aisle passenger, or I mean, even in premium economy, sometimes a middle seat, is a really nice opportunity. And just the fact that it also happens to be a health-focused thing is a great bonus. I was also interested by what they're calling an economy class product, and this is a bit more new, a bit more special in some ways, I would argue, but it's looks a little similar to some of the stuff we've seen from previous episodes we've talked about, where it's sort of a divider that slips in, a bench that takes over the middle seat of a 3-seat, or can be put on the aisle end if you've got a couple traveling together. And again, a really interesting product. I think, though, you know, it comes across to me more as a premium product than an economy product. I feel like this is Eurobiz targeted, not truly an economy situation.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that front, definitely, Seth. So with regard to the Safran partnership, it looks like they're going into production this summer. And these are both retrofit options, but there is an intention to develop the seat further into like a full family offering, potentially targeting the line fit market as well with some of the iterations there.
Yeah, it'll be great to see if these actually end up on planes. So looking forward to it. And our closing thought this week, we have some news from the industry with RedCabin pulling together a working group to talk about cabin hygiene and materials and construction. It's an interesting effort trying to sort of establish some standards and cooperation on what it takes to deliver the in-cabin monument seating, covers, all of those things in a manner that can be properly cleaned, maintained in a hygienic way, and sort of standardized that everyone agrees that those things are going to be clean if the rules are followed.
Yeah, I think it's really great to see these industry-led working groups because it just shows that the companies involved in the industry are being proactive to find solutions. There's a lot of ambiguity about what surfaces are clean, what surfaces are antimicrobial, which cleaners can be used. And by bringing together all the players, they've got, the guys who are manufacturing the cleaning solutions here. We've got fabrics manufacturers, we've got hard surface manufacturers, seat makers themselves.
Absolutely. I would say it's important that the industry get out in front of this to establish those standards, to make sure that they know what's going to work. Because they do know better than what any regulator might come up with, but getting it done right in advance and having that sort of be a proactive situation rather than responding to regulatory pressures is going to be good for the industry overall.
Yeah, so congratulations to them. We'll have to wait and see what they come up with as part of that working group. And with that, we are out of time for today. Thank you so much, Seth, for joining us as always.
Pleasure to be here.
And thank you, everybody at home, for watching. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll have some highlights from this week's Apex FTE webinar focusing on ancillary revenues. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like this video and you want to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of air travel these days. Follow Seth and myself on social media, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.